This is the Bible Show. Welcome, folks, to another episode of the Bible Show. Just kidding.
In one moment, there will be a new episode.
In one moment, we're going to get to the new episode. But first, I have an exciting announcement. When we go through and we read in our comments, one of the things that we see more than any other is like, we wish that there was something daily. We wish you produced more. And so, exciting announcement. We are actually in production of something that's going to be called the Bible Show
Daily.
And so the plan is we are going to produce shorter segments that go somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes. We're still figuring all that out, but they'll be released on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, with our longer episodes still landing in Wednesday. And so what's good about that is that we're focused on the Old Testament and we're working through these long series. These other days can be devoted to New Testament. It can give you some devotional elements, working through the Sermon on the Mount or something along those lines. Also with that, part of this announcement is we want to ask you to help us and partner with us. And so on this channel, if you look right underneath this video, you'll see a link in which you can partner with us. It's a tax-deductible gift. But in making these shows, we do Under the Hood, we do the Bible Show. Now we'll be doing the Bible Show daily. It costs money to produce these. Yeah. Will and I don't make anything,
no,
but it does cost money to produce these. And we would love it if you believe in the show and you want to partner with us to make sure that this is possible. We would love it if you would go and click on that link below, support us. If you can't, we want this to be free. We want this to be free to as many ears as can hear it. But if you believe in what we're doing and you're able to, if God's blessed you, we would love it if you would partner with us.
And we also believe in the local church. Like Sam and I, we work at a local church. We're part of a body. And so we believe that the first 10% God gives us and commands us to give to that local body. So we don't want to become the place where you tithe. Still give to your church. Find a church if you don't have one. We really believe in that. We're not a church either at this podcast. But that's one thing I would like to offer too.
Amen. All right. So now back to our regularly scheduled program.
Enjoy the show.
Welcome, folks, to another episode of the Bible Show. My name is Sam. Joining me is Will, and we are continuing our series in the book of Genesis. Today, we're getting to Genesis 43, but we have been in the story of Jacob's 12 sons, Joseph, Judah, the other 10, going back all the way to Genesis 37. So to catch us up, because Will is way briefer than me at summarizing, Will, summarize.
All right, starting in Genesis 37, we have Joseph. Favorite son, he's got the code, he has dad's everything. He hits him with the 2 dreams that everyone's going to bow down to me. They don't like that. Eventually they want to kill him, but instead he's just sold into slavery. Heads down to Egypt. Then 38, we get the timeout, and we get the Judah and Tamar story. Gross, but beautifully redemptive in the end. You know, Tamar and Judah repents, and everything's great. Then in 39, Joseph is in Potiphar's house. And the incident with Potiphar's wife takes place. She falsely accuses him of sexually assaulting her. Joseph obviously did not, but he is still thrown to prison because what is Potiphar going to do in that situation? 40 is the next number. Yep. 40 is when he interprets the cupbearer and the chief baker's dreams. One's restored. I don't remember which one's restored. The baker's restored.
No, the baker's going to be hanged.
Okay, baker is hanged. Cupbearer is restored, and the only thing Joseph asks from those 2 guys, or at least the one who is not dead, is, will you remember me? And do they remember him? Nope. So then 2 whole years pass by, and finally Pharaoh has dreams that no one can interpret. So Pharaoh finally hears about Joseph. The cupbearer's like, oh, I know a guy. And then he's called up from the pit, interprets the dreams.
And the dreams mean?
There's going to be 7 years of abundance and 7 years of famine, and they need to prepare adequately for it.
Mm-hmm.
And 42 is the moment.
Yeah. So in that, he's like, okay, well, then you're the guy. So Joseph's exalted to the number 2 position in all of Egypt. And then, so last chapter, what we talked about was, this famine hits. The brothers are like, oh my goodness, we're all going to die. Jacob sends them down there. They show up before Joseph, and Joseph's like, you guys, you're spies. And they're like, what? And so Joseph recognizes them. They don't recognize him, this brother that they've sold into slavery. So Joseph unfurls this scheme that's beautiful, right? It's pretty amazingly brilliant, where he's going to make them experience the things that he's experienced. He accuses them of spying out and taking advantage of the nakedness of the land, right? He's giving them a false accusation. They really weren't planning to do that, but they land in prison from a false accusation, just like him. then they're in this prison and he says, one of you is going to be sent. So they're all, which one of us. Then he changes it and says, okay, one of you is going to stay, chooses Simeon, the logical choice, and sends the rest of them home with silver in their sacks. So they're leaving another one of their brothers in Egypt, forsaken seemingly, with going home with silver in their sacks, just like they did when they betrayed Joseph. They get home to Jacob, who no doubt and they find all the silver in the sacks. And so he's got to be like, well, how did you get all this grain? You didn't pay any money. You came home with more. Like, your brothers left behind. Did you sell them into slavery? Like, all these questions going on. Jacob has no trust for any of these sons. And so at the end of Genesis 42, they're saying the only way that this Egyptian official, who is Joseph, will allow us to get more grain and will allow Simeon to leave prison is if we come back here with the only remaining son that you have, Benjamin, which is a weird request to come from an Egyptian official. And Jacob is having none of it. None of it. Like, you are not taking my son. He's my only remaining son, he says to them. Which is an ouch. Like, you reveal the depths of how fractured this family is, but he is not allowing Benjamin to go. What Jacob doesn't know is that this is not a 1 or 2 year famine. This is going to be one that he can't outlast. He's going to have to make a decision. Either we all perish, or I'm going to have to be willing to give my son.
Because Egypt is still the only place that they have access to food.
That's right.
Okay.
Everywhere. All the nations are coming to Egypt at this point. This famine is severe, which we hear in verse 1 of chapter 43. It says, now the famine was severe in the land. And so why is that important? God is forcing them into a situation that they never would have reached on their own, right? Like, this fractured family, this distrust, everything would have gone on status quo. If, like, the crops came in, Jacob never would have found Joseph. He would have continued thinking that his 10 sons are scoundrels, worthless. You're not my sons, broken family. He would have continued coddling Benjamin, which wouldn't have been great for Benjamin. God is forcing the issue with this severe famine. He's going to make them do things that they don't want to do, that they're going to think are bad for them. That God is ultimately putting this in their path so that it actually helps them and will redeem the whole family and ultimately save their lives. But this famine, it's helpful when you're going into this, because do you have a category for what a famine would look like here?
No idea. We only have the category for when a hurricane's coming. And we all storm Publix for water bottles and bread and just the things we think that'll last forever. And we all buy in overabundance.
Yeah.
And then the next guy's walking in like, where's all the water?
That's right. Yeah, we're breaking out the, canned chicken and our ramen noodle supply.
And then you don't eat any of it.
Right. And then it just goes bad after 3 years. Yeah, like that. But a famine where it's like, I don't know where I can find food. Or I don't have money. Or I don't have land to grow crops on, whatever. When famine hits and it just decimates everybody around you, there's nowhere to go. Like, this was one of the great fears that you had in the ancient world. It's one of the reasons why when you go back, I used to wonder this all the time. Like, when you go back and you research ancient cultures, they all have their chief god is always a god of fertility. And you're like, weird. Yeah. Like, we can't imagine why that's so important to us. Like, we would be like, okay, I understand the god of sun or the god of life or resurrection, but fertility, like, why was that? Well, it wasn't just fertility of having more babies. It was the fertility of the land to grow the crops. It was the fertility of your herds to produce more animals. And so I put together a list. Sorry to start the episode this way, but if you were to imagine going back to 3800 BC or 1800 BC, 3800 years ago, and you imagine what happens when a famine hits the ancient world. This is an incomplete list, of course, but mass starvation. So your neighbors are dying, your family members are dying, or on the verge of death. You have malnutrition, stunted growth. All the archaeological records, when they go into these places where they suffered famine, they're stunted, they're shorter, they have malnourished bones, very brittle. Like, you can tell physiologically in the ruins that a famine hit because these people are so decimated. You have forced migration. Why would that be?
Got to go somewhere where there's food.
If I don't have food here, I got to leave everything I've ever known. I've got to leave my homeland, leave my kingdom, the city that we built. Like, it's nice and all, but there's no food around it. And they leave and they go to other places. You've got forced slavery. Why is that?
If I can't feed me, I have to go to you to get fed, and that's not free.
That's right. And if I have nothing to offer you because everything's been decimated by this poverty, then I've got to give you me. Like I've got to be enslaved so that you'll feed me. You have skyrocketing crime. Why is that?
If I can take it from you, it's mine.
That's right. If that neighbor has food or herds still left and I've eaten all of mine, guess what? Like if I got to choose between feeding my family and taking that, everybody's on the brink of that. They start making these bad ethical conditions. And you get this feeling like if you were living in this time, this is not a fun time to be alive. There's cultural chaos going on, skyrocketing crime. You're losing your flocks and herds. Why? Because they have nothing to eat, one. But then beyond that, if you have nothing to eat, guess what's getting eaten?
Has to.
So all your flocks and herds are getting decimated. And here's something that I didn't know that I've never thought about, but cannibalism was a thing. Like I was going through some Egyptian records way back in the period right before Joseph. So the first to intermediate period, right before Joseph. And you have this guy whose name is Ankh-Tifi, who is a provincial governor in Egypt. And he's recording what the famine was like that came a couple centuries right before Joseph. And this is what he writes. The whole of Upper Egypt, and that's weird because on a map, when you think Upper Egypt, you want to go north, but Upper Egypt's actually south where the land is higher. Huh. So it's Upper Egypt is south, but the whole of Upper Egypt died of hunger, and each individual had reached such a state of hunger that he ate his own children.
Wow.
Do you imagine? Like that's the level of desperation that's going on in these Egyptian famines back in those days. Like
it's pretty insane.
Yeah. I mean, it's a couple centuries away from Joseph, but it may as well be contemporary in ancient Egypt. And so like cannibalism, like you don't see Jacob going, I had a bad joke about a Reuben sandwich here.
I saw that. I'm like, you're going to try to force one every episode?
Yeah, I probably should lay off of those. But cannibalism, it fit better. Like I just couldn't figure out how to deliver it there. Anyway, so you have political instability. Why? Because if you can't save us from the famine and you're doing all these things and the gods aren't happy with you,
we got to get a new guy.
Then you have geopolitical things. Like if your nation has it and our nation doesn't, we go to war.
Yeah, like you said, they're spies. Like,
that's right.
Like you're from a foreign land, you're trying to hurt our country.
Yeah, either your tribe, your nation, your city, whatever. And that would have been the natural accusation at this time. And then the last one is you actually had entire civilizations just disappear because of famine. One of the most famous is something called the Bronze Age collapse, which is worse than what happened to the Roman Empire, where you have these major empires like the old Assyrian Empire, the old Babylonian Empire, the Hittites, the Egyptians at this point, where sometime around 1100 BC, just before King David, all these major empires just shrink. The Hittites disappear entirely right during this time period. When studying it, you know why they think it happened? There was a massive shift of climate, massive drought. Then came this unbelievable famine, and it wiped out the major empires that surrounded Israel, which, interestingly enough, enabled David, his kingdom, to grow massively because there were no major enemies to oppose that. They'd all been decimated by this famine. So you see actual entire civilizations collapse because of famine. And Jacob is staring into the middle of this going, I'm not letting go of Benjamin, right? But you got to feel the weight of these things in the ancient world. In verse 2, it says, when they had eaten the grain that they had brought from Egypt, their father said to them, go again and buy us a little food. What has he not said there?
Bring Benjamin along and make a deal.
Yeah, just who cares what that Egyptian official says? You're not getting Benjamin, but we need food.
And we don't know how long this lasts, though, but it seems like they brought back a lot of food.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm guessing it's months, like several months.
Yeah.
When they go back, we'll find later in the chapter that there's still 5 years of famine left. So the famine hits. After a year of famine, the brothers go and they're like, the crops failed. We got to go. So I'm thinking that's year 1. When they go again, we're going to find out it's at the end of year 2 and there's 5 years left. Okay. So I'm thinking this has been several months, or even a year. But think about this. Simeon, what's he been doing this whole time?
In prison.
And Jacob is like, well, I'm not giving Benjamin. Simeon can rot. I am not giving Benjamin here. And there's dangers to this. And now if you're Jacob and you're the sons, you're thinking, food's low. Like, we're getting to the very end of our supplies here, and it's 3 weeks there. It's 3 weeks back. So like, if we don't move quickly, like we have a 6 week or 4 to 6 week turnaround time of a 350-mile trip to Egypt. Like we got to make this decision. Like this is becoming, time is of the essence, Dad. And he's like, okay, go get us a little food. Buy us a little food. Now that's a clue as to how desperate they are. When he says, buy us a little food. Why? Why buy us a little food? Why not? We need to store up.
Can they not afford more?
That's what I'm wondering. Because Jacob, right, where he comes back from Laban, he's got tremendous wealth, right? Like if you're in the middle of a famine and you're looking at your desperation, you can't produce your own food. Why would you not be like, hey, go get as much as you can? Yeah. He says, buy us a little food.
Well, if all your wealth is caught up in livestock, that's all dead by now or eaten.
Yeah. Buy us I think that he's stretching. I think this is really dire times. I think that's a clue as to how bad things have gotten here potentially. And so, I mean, maybe he doesn't want to press his luck with the Egyptian official. That's the other way of seeing this. Like he doesn't want to go, we'll take it all, even though we're not giving you Benjamin. We'll take it all. Maybe he wants to like sneak under the radar, just get a little. Yeah. But I think they're desperate. Verse 3, it says, but Judah. So now who's Judah?
The redeemed Judah now.
The redeemed Judah now, who's back home with Dad. He's left the Canaanites. He's back home. He's turned the corner, but he's the fourth born son. Like he shouldn't be the spokesman for the sons. Like they had something called primogeniture, which is like the firstborn speaks, right? Reuben's disqualified himself. He's an idiot. He tried to do a coup. And what's his solution to this?
Oh, I'll just send my 2 sons. They can have them.
Yeah, like if we fail to bring Benjamin back, you can kill my sons. Like what kind of solution is that? Reuben, every time he opens his mouth, it's like just stop talking. So Judah, who is the fourth born son, who's going to be the one in the line of Christ out of the 12, pipes up, and you see Judah starting to emerge. He'll be the kingly line, and here you see him emerging as the leader of this family for the first time, where he's like, hold on, let me speak, which is interesting. Like this is the beginning of the kingly aspect of Judah, right? And he says, the man solemnly warned us, saying, you shall not see my face unless your brother is with you. So why is
Judah remembers,
right?
Judah's nervous to be the guy who goes there to Egypt, be like, we don't got him. And the guy who's making decisions not here. Like, what do you want us to do?
Yeah, and if Joseph says, you shall not see my face again, it's like, you don't even get an audience with him. He's not going to listen. We're going to be sent back. It's going to be a wasted trip. Like this is a dangerous trip for nothing. But there's a couple of things here. When he says solemnly, that word evokes, like he made a solemn, sacred, irrevocable promise warning to us, which is what? Remember what Joseph says, by the life of Pharaoh, he will not leave here until Benjamin comes. So this promise is something that is irrevocable. He couldn't take it back because it's a promise at the expense of the life of Pharaoh. Like he can't take that back. And so Judah's like, this is solemn. Like you're sending us, this can't be taken away. Like we can't go negotiate this. And then he says, you shall not see my face unless your brother's with you. Now this is like Bible language, but I want to take a moment, and maybe this is going to, be too much of a rabbit trail, but I want to park here on that expression about seeing the face of people, rulers, God, in the scriptures. Because what do you think of? You shall not see my face again.
I mean, think of God saying you can't see my face and live.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But that's a bizarre expression to us, right?
Yeah. Because what's a big deal about seeing faces? Or if Joseph makes eye contact with them, what does that matter?
If you don't want to have something to do with somebody, you would never say, you shall never see my face again. And in a world where we have like the biggest social media platform on the planet is literally called Facebook, where you can see the face of whatever it is, 3 billion people, however many users. Like it's a massive platform where seeing somebody's face we take for granted. But back then, where would you see their face?
Just in person.
That's it. Like, I mean, you're going to look at a carving, and I mean, painting was pretty crude back then. You're not going to get a good, like portraits, real portraits weren't things. I mean, you could see statues maybe, but like,
who cares about that?
You're not going to see a statue of Joseph where you're going. And so it's like to see somebody's face meant that you had access to them personally, right? So this was an expression that's used by the most powerful people in the ancient world. You have Pharaoh, who tells Moses, right? When Moses is like, the 10th plague's going on, the plague of the firstborn. What does Pharaoh say to Moses? You shall not see my face again. You've got God on Mount Sinai. Moses is saying, can I see your face? But it's not allowed because you cannot see my face. You can't be, in other words, it's not like we hear that and we're like, oh, there's something weird about God's face, like it causes death. No, what it means is you can't have access to him. That's what it means. You can't be in my presence. There's nothing like, it's not just like your eyeballs can't take it, which I think is probably true too. But it's, you can't be in my presence. You can't see my face. That's what that means. You're barred. You're out. Because you're sinful, because you're broken, because I'm at enmity with you, you may not see my face. And this was a common expression in all the ancient world. It was also used of God. But in the Old Testament, like you said, no one can see the face of God and live unless there's some kind of a mediator. So when Jacob says, I've seen the face of God when he wrestles the angel, there's a mediating presence. He's not seeing the full unveiled presence and the glory of God. It's a mediated presence. And it's always, what do you think it would be like to see the face of God? Let's just pause there. Like in your imagination, I know you don't have categories to explain it, so it's a stupid question to start with, but where does your brain go when you think of that?
I guess when you think, it's always light, I feel like.
Yeah, always for me.
Yeah, it's just a lot. Overwhelming, I would say, like,
yeah,
in that regard, to ever see it.
I wonder, I had somebody, I was talking with them when I first came to faith, and one of my questions was always, why doesn't God just let everyone go to heaven? Like, let them all in. Which, back then I have no doctrine of sin, and, then that would just make heaven a hell because we would take all of our brokenness there with all of our mess without being redeemed or transformed at all. And then heaven would be no different. There would be no relief from all the injustices. That's another topic. I don't want to go too far down that rabbit trail. But the thing that he said to me was, you wouldn't want to be in the presence of God in your sinful nature.
Yeah.
Like, it would be, heaven would be in the presence of a glorious, holy, all-consuming, all-righteous fire, like of who he is without being redeemed in Christ, without being made new, without being, purified. It would be a hellish torment for you to be in the presence of God.
Yeah, could you imagine the
and
shame?
Your sin? Yeah, I mean, that's it.
Yeah,
like everybody,
eat me apart.
Everybody who ever has an encounter with a divine being, what's their response?
And they're terrified.
Get away from me. Get away. And in the garden, they hide. And, it's at the mountain, they say at Sinai, get them away from us lest we die. I mean, Ezekiel, Isaiah, John in Revelation, I fell at his face as though dead. Isaiah's like, woe is me. This is not good. I can't be in the presence of this. And that's just in a vision. Like, so much of this is like, we think, to be in the presence of God, but in our fallen, selfish, gross, self-absorbed, sinful, prideful nature, it would be absolutely awful. It would be like saying, you know what? I'd like to take a walk on the surface of the sun. No, you wouldn't. Like, it's a pretty amazing thing.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
But you can't approach it with the tools you've got. You'd be consumed. It would be utterly, like, if you could feel it, you wouldn't feel it because you'd be annihilated way before you got there. You couldn't get there unless you had some kind of like crazy special covering. Right? That could protect you from just how amazing the sun is. And the sun is like a C- student of all the stars of our Creator. And we say, I just want to go into his presence and see his face with no covering, like no preparation, just me. Here I am. No, you don't.
Yes.
No, you don't. Not without a covering. And guess what? You have a covering.
Yeah.
That's one of the themes of the Bible. 2 Corinthians 4:6 says, for God, who said, let light shine out of darkness, has shone in our hearts to give the light of the knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Jesus Christ. So God comes and wants to show you his face. Where does he show you his face? In a fallen world.
In Jesus.
In Jesus, where he becomes a man, where you get to see his glory and his character, right? In flesh, in his character. And this idea, God wants you, this is a kind of a wild thing, is you can't see God's face as you are, but he wants you to be able to see his face.
Hmm.
And so he makes a way for you to be able to come into his presence, which is to be clothed, to have your sin taken away by Jesus, and to have Jesus' righteousness covering you. You're covered. And now, what does the scriptures command, right? In Hebrews, what does it say? Come boldly to the throne of grace. Like God's like, come on in. You can see me now. And one of the most wild, and I'm done with this after this, but one of the most wild things that I've ever realized, and it was transformative when I studied this book, was and doing the Song of Songs, and we'll have to do a series on this eventually. I love teaching that book. But that whole book is an allegory. It's the greatest love story ever told, right? So it's the love story of Christ and his church, God and his people. And as you go through that, the lover is the figure and the metaphor of God, and the bridal figure is his people, the church. And so when you see that, you have the lover, the male figure in that story. Listen to what he says, and imagine this being God's heart for his people. He says, "My dove in the clefts of the rock." Now, what do you hear there? What happened in the cleft of the rock at Mount Sinai?
God let Moses see his heel.
His backside, right? So Moses says, "I want to see your face." And God's like, no, you don't. No, you don't. No one can see my face and live. No one can be in my presence is the idea and live. No one has access to me. So I'm going to put you in a hiding spot in the cleft of the rock. And then what am I going to do? I'm going to have my backside, just the hint of my presence go by. You can't have access to see my face, but you can be just near me as I pass by. And Moses is blown away just by that, right? So now hear the lover, and you hear what it's hinting at. My dove in the clefts of the rock. Now, what's that refer? It's referring to Moses. It's looking back. That's the one time you see this cleft of the rock business, and it's when Moses asked to see God's face. But now you have God saying to his people, "My dove in the clefts of the rock, in the hiding places on the mountainside." What is it? Show me your face. Let me hear your voice, for your voice is sweet and your face is lovely. Like, imagine the contrast of that is Moses on the mountain being like, this is like otherworldly. This is amazing. I want to see your face, like, and all the awe and wonder of that. Like, you understand why Moses would have a heart that's like, God, I want to see your face. You're amazing.
Yeah.
And here, when God gives this love poem, what is he saying?
He wants to see our face.
I want to see your face. What?
That's crazy.
What? The omnipotent God who creates the universes with a voice, you're excited to see my face? You want to hear my voice? Like, you're excited for me? You're not just a God up there who's calling strikes and balls and the objective, distant judge of the universe. Like, no, you get excited when I turn my face to heaven, when I pray to you and you hear my voice. That excites you? That's kind of wild.
That is.
Wow. And then listen to what he says in Song of Song 4:9. That's 2:14. Listen to what he says in Song 4:9. You, my bride, have stolen my heart with one glance of your eyes. What? Like, what do you think of when you hear that? Like, put it in human terms. If you get a glance of someone's eyes.
I mean, that's like real love. That's like a spousal thing that we feel. You can just catch the glance of someone's eye, and it's everything to that person.
Mm-hmm. And the hint, one of the translations of the Bible, I think it may be the NASB, which is the more literal one, translates this: "You have made my heart beat faster and faster with one glance of your eyes." Like, if that book is allegorical, which I'm absolutely convinced it is, it's not just a sex manual. Though it might be that too. This is a wild statement that God would look at us and say, I feel excited, exhilarated with a glance of your eyes. When you show me your face, when I get to hear your voice, you tug at the heartstrings of God. Like, let that sink in. Seeing the face of God is one of the great pursuits in the history of the church and redemptive history. Seeing the beatific vision, as the fathers of the faith used to say it, that's the goal, to see him in all his beauty. Because when you see him, as John says, right, in one of his epistles, when we see him, we will become like him, for we shall see him as he is. Like, to see utter beauty transforms you. And, that's when we're digging into the word, that's our goal. We want to see him because seeing him transforms us, and he's the ultimate beauty. That's the goal. And the crazy thing is he wants to see us.
Yeah.
Well, okay, then who am I to deny you this great desire that you have to see my face? It's not just about whether I want to pray. It's not like, I don't feel like it. I'm not feeling it today. It's like, no, God has a desire to see your face and to hear your voice. And by not doing it, you're denying the God of the universe his desires, what he really wants, what fills his heart with joy. It's kind of a different way to look at it, isn't it?
Yeah, I think if more people knew that description of God than the one a lot of people are holding on to, that he's just some judgmental ogre in the sky who's out to get us,
yeah,
a lot would change. And I think that on a personal level, even just for me, to think of God like that, if I woke up and thought of God like that every single morning, my relationship with him would be different.
Yeah.
Like you said, I desire more to be with him because I wouldn't feel like, oh, he doesn't want to see me today.
Mm-hmm. So reveal my awful human nature and what a terrible person I can be. Those moments where your wife and you have tension or whatever, and it's just like the argument comes to a peak, it's not resolved, and it's time to go to work. So you walk out the door without resolving it, and there's a little bit of the silent treatment hanging, and you spend your entire car ride on the way to work with this tension of, I'm right and stupid, right? But I can't stand the fact that there's this looming tension and there's something in me that wants to make this right because I don't want her to feel that.
Yeah.
And silent treatment is like the worst. We do that to God all the time, where it's like you have a God, imagine that, if this really is, the way that it is, that you have a God whose heart, you tug on his heartstrings every time you show him your face, which I think is true. And where he hears your voice, he delights in that. And you just go, and you walk right by him all the time. How crazy is that we do that to God? It's wild to me. And yet my prayer life is still not what it should be. It's just not. We're crazy. And the fact that he keeps pursuing us is wild.
And right. Even in that moment, even when we're bad at it, he's not there to beat us up about it.
Right.
He's just waiting there.
He's excited patiently. The next time we come. He's not like, well, about time.
Yeah. It took you long enough.
Yeah. He's so good. All right. Verse 4. Anyway, that seeing the face in the ancient world is really important to the Christian story too. That's why it's in that verse that I mentioned in 2 Corinthians 4:6, you get the knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Christ. In him you have access is the idea, which is true. So here we have Judah continuing. He says, if you will send our brother with us, we'll go down and buy for you food. And notice this, it's Judah who's now going to Jacob saying, you're the boss. You're our dad. We submit to you. You're in charge. I'm showing faithfulness as a son here. I'm going to obey, in a sense, what you say. But if you will not send him, we will not go down. For the man said to us, you shall not see my face unless your brother's with you. So Judah is now in this tug of war between honoring the official of Egypt who says, you may not do this, and honoring the dad who's like, I'm not sending Benjamin, but I want you to go. And he's like, I'm going to honor him. And I'm not, by the way, if you're the brothers and you're on the verge of death and starvation, what would you be tempted to do here?
I'm taking Benjamin with me.
Yeah. Take him in the night, and we're going to put a sack over your head, and you're coming to Egypt. We're getting food. We'll bring you back to dad. He'll have to forgive us rather than give us permission, but you're coming. And Judah doesn't do that. He submits to his father here, but he will not disobey Egypt. And one of the things that I noticed in reading this, and this is, you find these little threads of salvation, and I don't know how intentional they are, but it's there. The idea here is they will not find salvation or see his face unless they bring the favored son with them. What do you hear in that?
I mean, Jesus.
Yeah. The only thing that will save their lives is showing up in Egypt, which is emblematic all over the place of the land of death. So they have to show up in the land of death with the favored son. Nothing else matters. There's no bribes that'll matter, no deeds they can do, no magic spell, no speeches. You have one thing that matters. The only way you find life is if you bring the son. Okay, there's a little pattern going on there.
And Judah's not game planning other solutions. He's going to his dad and saying, You give us the son, we go down. You don't give us the son, we don't go down. That's the deal on the table.
And we all die. We all die. And I had another thought with this passage. Like, one of my favorite things to do is when I get quiet spots to be like, okay, if I'm Jacob, like, how am I processing this, right? I get not trusting the sons. I get why you would love Benjamin like crazy. I understand how he's so broken. But if I'm Jacob and starvation's on the table, like, why don't you go? Why don't you be like, okay, we're all going. I'm not trusting you with Benjamin, but I'm going to go. And we're all going to go together. Have you ever had that thought?
I just think he's old.
He's not, but he goes later.
That's true. I'd forget that part. I'm just always thinking he's just the old guy in the chair telling people what to do.
Yeah, like he's going around with a cane like, 350 miles, too much for me, guys. But that's not, he goes later. He's able to make the journey. Why doesn't he go? And it dawned on me, at least here's another Sam theory, take it for what it's worth. I think he's terrified to go anywhere God hasn't told him to go. You get it? Like what happened last time he went somewhere God told him not to go?
Yeah.
Everything in his life blew up. He is a shell of his former self because he went to Shechem. Everything in his life blew up. He lost Rachel. He found out he lost his mom. He lost his mom's maid. He's lost everything there. And then he loses Joseph on top of that later. I think he is a shell of himself. And he is saying, I'm not leaving this land again. Like, I know what happened last time I left this land trying to eke out my own solutions. God told me to stay here. And when I didn't, bam, my life blew up. I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving. I think that's going on here. And I'll tell you why I think that even more so is when you get to like the breaking point where now it's like evidence on the table that Joseph's alive. Everything's good. You could go to Egypt. Everything's okay. It takes God himself in Genesis 46, verse 3 and 4. God himself has to come to Jacob and say this, I am God, the God of your father. Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt. So Jacob's afraid of Egypt. He's afraid to go. For there I will make you into a great nation. I myself will go down with you to Egypt, and I will also bring you up again. So Jacob, I'm not going unless he's with me. I'm not moving. I know what happens when I leave the center of God's will. My life blows up. Maybe.
Yeah, and my only
That's
argument...
charitable to Jacob.
Yeah, no, I was actually shocked that you're speaking of Jacob so well. Because my only argument against that is one that we can't prove, because I don't know if Jacob's asking God anything, but it would be nice for Jacob to be like, hey, God, we're dying here.
Yeah.
There's food in Egypt. Is that the right way to do this?
Yeah. We're not told if he's doing that or not.
Yeah, it's an argument from silence, so it doesn't make sense, but it is interesting that he is so, like, yeah, he is really anchored there.
But it just seems like the simpler solutions go with him.
Yeah, I mean, this family's
You're
not
just going to die of starvation? Like, get up, get out of your wheelchair. Like, make the trip. You can make the trip later. Why not now? Like, life and death is on the line. I get the sense that he's like, I don't feel good about leaving this place. Maybe.
It makes sense.
Anyway, I've not a hill to die on, but it's another one of those thoughts. Like, that would have solved it. Why not do that? Verse 6, Israel said, what jumps out at you there?
Now we're back to Israel. Now
we're back to Israel again. It's like the ping pong of Jacob, Israel, Jacob, Israel. But I read a commentary, and I think this is true. It doesn't work all the time, but they say you're more likely than not when the Bible uses Israel after his name is changed. When the Bible uses Israel, it's almost always speaking of the covenant, like he is speaking on behalf of the covenant with God, or he is speaking on behalf of the entire family's plans. And then Jacob is more like individual actions. It doesn't always work, but it seems to be more the pattern. So Israel, this is Jacob, said, why did you treat me so badly as to tell the man that you had another brother? So like, so he now knows, like, that's what's keeping us from getting grain. I can't send Benjamin. How in the world did it come where you told him that you had another brother? Like, this is now the problem. And so he's blaming his sons for something that God has been orchestrating. And he can't see anything but a bad outcome. If Benjamin goes, I know this ends poorly, because every time you guys handle something, it ends poorly.
And you're taking Benjamin to a guy who's already taken one of your sons. Like, you just don't like that one that he has now. But
that's true.
You're definitely like, whoever this guy, random guy is in Egypt, is powerful enough to take one of my sons and not return her.
Yeah. And this on a practical level, this is one of those things where it's like, if Jacob could hear God and trust God in the middle of this. Like he's got reasons to trust and to distrust his sons. So this would be really difficult. But if God had come to Jacob right here and said, hey, if you'll just trust Benjamin to me, here's what you get. You'll be saved from certain death by starvation. My promise to save the world through your seed is going to be protected. You'll receive your son Joseph back from the dead. Jacob can't imagine that at this point. You'll become a revered figure in the mightiest kingdom on earth of Egypt. Future generations are going to refer to me as the God of Jacob. Your estranged sons that now everything's so broken and upside down, they're going to be reconciled to each other and to you. But it all hinges on you taking this step. And to Jacob, he cannot possibly see any good coming from it. Any. Like, okay, the best we get grain back. Like, and God's like, you can't even imagine what I'm going to do with this. And there's so many times where we reach moments in life where, like, I think about, I've got a senior in high school, right? So next year I've got to hand him off, and I'm literally taking my Benjamin, right? My Caleb. And I'm going to send him and say, okay, like, I'm trusting others that are going to impact your soul, take care of you, train you up. Like, you're going to be out of my house. I'm trusting your life to them. And that's where my brain goes. So I'm like, it's got to be a good college. It's got to be good professors. It's got to be this. I hope he gets a good roommate. But the reality is, like, your parenting doesn't end at 18. It just shifts. And one of our coworkers says, then your ministry to your kids is on your knees, because who ultimately protects them and guides them and steers them and has their fate? God, way more than any of the other things you worry about. Think about those things, but ultimately they're in the hands of God, And there's so many moments, like when you go through your life where you think of seasons that were really dark or really hard, or where you're like, oh, there's no good outcome that can come from this, that in hindsight. Like, I remember when I first came to faith, I was a financial broker with A.G. Edwards. So stockbroker, basically, financial, I forget what, consultant. Gosh, forgot the title. And so I was like, when I came to faith, I got so excited about Jesus and studying everything. And it's like, I got to the point where it's like, oh, my interest in the financial world is gone. I'm going to quit my job. I went and talked to my boss. I was way more charismatic in those days. So it was like, leap before you look kind of world. And which was, some of that was cool. But anyway, I just quit my job and I was like, I'm going into ministry. I'm going to become a pastor. No education training, still struggling with all kinds of stuff, which, and I'm like, no one wants to hire a pastor who's occasionally still getting bombed on the weekend, or lots of immaturity still rooting around. And so nobody would hire me, and I had to swallow my pride, and I took a job. I'd built a book of business at A.G. Edwards over years, right? Walked away from it all and had to go get a job mixing paint at Sherwin-Williams in Jupiter.
Nice.
So I'm moving out of my town, go down there, don't know anybody at all. And I'm carrying paint buckets to construction sites, And so many times I thought, that put the bullet in my life. Like that.
Yeah, this is not the plan.
My dreams are done. Like, the ministry thing's never going to happen. Like, my resume is shattered. Like, and by the way, that was the only thing that could get me into South Florida, because I hated South Florida, everything I knew of South Florida back then. That was the only way I was going to go down there, was by necessity. But I'll tell you what, like, when I had no friends, no comforts, only the Lord in a 1-bedroom apartment, he grew me so much in that season where it was just me and him. And from that, I had the guy who led me to the Lord from collect call in jail, calls me and says, did you see this job opening in Fort Lauderdale that then brought me down here? And I think back, had I not made that decision, that at the time I was convinced there's only bad here, there would be no Laura. There would be none of my 4 kids. There would be no ministry. We wouldn't know each other. There would be no podcast. There would be like, and so in that moment, I'm like, I've wrecked everything. There's no good that can come out of this. And then it's like, there's so many of these in your life. If you just look and wake up, how God uses all those things to steer you into blessing after blessing, if you just submit to him, and hang on to him. And so the best parts of who I am today were created in seasons that felt like a furnace. Always. Do you find that to be true?
Yeah. And even like when we read the story of Joseph, like perspective wise, I mean, now he's doing good because he's on top. But like for the whole time, you're thinking like, oh, it can't get worse for this guy. And it keeps getting worse. But then God keeps saying the Lord was with Joseph and everything. You're like, well, that's confusing.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden you look back at your life and our lives and all of our lives, and it takes distance sometimes to do this. But you're like, oh, the Lord had me there. Mm-hmm. Like sometimes you have to like really force yourself to look at it. Some are harder than others. There's deep suffering in this life where it doesn't feel like it.
Yeah. There's that. And I've used this expression more and more recently, but it's like, there are days where my brain has to wrangle my heart because my heart's just not ready to believe it. And I have to preach what I know to be true to my feels, because it doesn't feel true some days. And you just have to keep reminding yourself it didn't feel true then either. Yeah. And it was. Verse 7, they replied, the man questioned us carefully about ourselves and our kindred, saying, is your father still alive? Do you have another brother? So like, is that true? No, that never happened. He comes to them and says, remember, Joseph is saying, you're not getting Simeon back unless, right? But in all that, he comes and says, you're spies. You're spies. And what's their immediate reaction without ever being asked? He doesn't say, hey, do you have another brother? Do you have a father? Their immediate reaction is, oh no, we're family men. We in fact, we have another brother back home and a dad. Like we're all one family. Like we're not spies.
Bring it back to him,
country. And so, but what do they tell dad?
That he asked us explicitly about our brother.
Yeah, not true. And the whole point of this is the whole point of the test by Joseph is to see if they're honest men, and they're not. Like what we told him was an answer to these questions. Could we in any way know? Could we in any way know that he would say, bring your brother down? Which is a wild thing. Like it makes no sense as to why he wants to see Benjamin.
And we have to say, from their perspective, they're really confused too. Like they're trying their best. I know they're not doing it perfectly, but I do feel like these guys are like, what do you want us to do, Dad?
Yeah.
This guy who the world's relying on to feed them said this to us. Sorry.
Yeah.
We're stuck.
Yeah. And ironically, like they're making the argument we're family men. The irony of all that is they're talking to Joseph, who is the victim of their treachery of not being family men.
I know your family
and
history.
Not being honest. And it's like you're lying to the one who is the only one who knows you're lying.
True.
It's like you have that conversation with God sometimes where it's like, no, I'm really this. And it's like, God's like, no, you know who I am, right? It's like, I know your mess. So verse 8, Judah said to Israel, his father, he's about to put it in and like give him a little bit of his own counsel. He says, send the boy with me and we will arise and go that we may live and not die. Now, the interesting thing is Jacob in the previous chapter, what did he say? What are you doing? Why are you looking at each other? Go down to Egypt, get grain that we may live and not die. And now Judah's like, hey,
yeah, we're going to
same
live
deal.
And not die.
Same deal. Like we'll do this so we may live and not die. Both we and you and our little ones, like all your grandkids are in jeopardy. And then he says something that is like the moment of Judah's redemption. Like this is the key. He says in verse 9, I will be a pledge of his safety. From my hand, you shall require him. If I do not bring him back to you and set him before you, then let me bear the blame forever. Literally, let me carry the sin. If we had not delayed, we would have returned twice by now. And so you had Reuben who said, hey, give us Benjamin. If it doesn't work out, you can have my sons. Judah is saying what?
You can have me.
I will lay down my life. And boom, that's why I think God ordains that the line of the Messiah comes through Judah. Because Joseph endures suffering faithfully that was imposed upon him. Judah here is saying, I'll take the suffering. I'll put myself into that Redeemer role where I will suffer voluntarily walking into it and lay down my life to make sure that everybody lives. And that is an interesting thing where Judah now, and this is another one of the big themes of redemptive history, where Judah's like, I will be the guarantee of life. When God comes in the covenant of carcasses in Genesis 15, what does he say to Abraham? If I break my promise, I'll be willing to die to hold it true. Hebrews 7, Jesus is called the guarantor of a better covenant. What does that mean?
That he's going to make it happen.
I'm going to make it happen. If I go into a bank and I would like a loan of $100 million, they're going to look at me and be like,
no chance.
Yeah, it's not a chance. But if I go into the bank and I've got, Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk behind me, and they're like, we got this. And I'm like, can I have $100 million? I promise to repay. And they're like, we'll guarantee it. Like, then the bank's going to be like, oh, sure, no problem. Like, Jesus is saying, I'll be the guarantor of a better covenant. It's not based upon your performance or what you bring to the table. I guarantee it. I'm behind you. And in Ephesians 1, again, the Spirit, listen to the way it describes this. When you heard the word of truth, the gospel of your salvation, and believed in him, you were sealed with the promised Holy Spirit, who is what? The guarantee of our inheritance until we acquire possession of it. What does that mean? The Spirit, it's not you.
Yes.
It's the Spirit in you, guaranteeing this. So then their father Israel hears this, and it's like the first time he's been so terrified of trusting any of his sons, but it's the first time he's had any of his sons say, I'm willing to lay down my life for another. And whatever that is, triggers in Jacob smelling salts to be like, okay. And he changes his mind. He says, if it must be so, then do this. Take some of the choice fruits of the land in your bag and carry a present down to the man, a little balm and a little honey. Notice the little, not a whole lot to go around. Gum, myrrh, pistachio nuts, and almonds, all things that do well in arid climates. Take double the money with you. Carry back with you the money that was returned in the mouth of your sacks. Perhaps it was an oversight, which means what? If he's saying perhaps it really was an oversight, I don't believe you. Yeah. Maybe you're telling the truth. But in this, he's trying to be like, let me make sure that I'm scheming and that all these gifts are going to put him in a good mood and everything else. And he's trying to add to the equation here. And then it says, take also, now you get to the hardest of the offerings. He says, take also your brother and arise, go again to the man. And then he does what he should have been doing all along. First thing out of his mouth should have been, may God Almighty grant you mercy before the man. May he send back your other brother and Benjamin. As for me, if I am bereaved of my children, I am bereaved. And you have, like, Jacob is this proud schemer who never backs away from odds, but at this moment, the only thing he can do is trust the Lord. Again, God brings him to another moment where he's at the end of himself. He's trying to do it all. And God's like, he brings him to where there's no other option again, like when Esau was coming and something beautiful is about to happen. God's about to make a major breakthrough that Jacob's like, this isn't going to end well. And if I'm bereaved, I'm bereaved. And God's about to do a beautiful thing. And this is a thing that's different. Like, Abraham is asked by God to give him his son, but he's asked by God, right? Like, okay, I can trust you. Jacob's being asked to entrust his sons to goofballs, the scoundrels that have a bad legacy, but he's ultimately being asked also, like, you've got to trust God in this. You send your kid off to college, you're trusting God, not the college. Your trust is ultimately in him. And so 15, it says, the men took this present. They took double the money with them and Benjamin. They arose and went down to Egypt and stood before Joseph. When Joseph saw Benjamin with him, he said to the steward of his house, bring the men into the house and slaughter an animal and make it ready, for the men are to dine with me at noon. Now, he's speaking Egyptian. They don't understand what's going on here. The man did as Joseph told him and brought the men into Joseph's house. So if you're them, what are you thinking?
Who knows what's going to happen next?
Why are we going into his house? Yeah. Like, I don't want to be near him. Just give us our brother, give us our grain, let us go.
Let's do the business deal and get out.
That's it. And the men were afraid because they were brought to Joseph's house, and they said, oh, it's because of the money which was replaced in our sacks the first time that were brought in. So he's going to assault us and fall upon us and make us servants and seize our donkeys. And so this fear and doubt is heightened. Massive stress is going on. They feel like this whole thing has been orchestrated as justice for what they did to Joseph. They feel like God is behind all this. So they went up to the steward of Joseph's house and spoke with him at the door of the house and said, oh, my Lord, we came down the first time to buy food. And when we came to the lodging place, we opened our sacks, and there was each man's money in the mouth of the sack, our money full in weight. So we have brought it again with us, and we brought the other money down with us to buy food. We don't know who put our money in our sacks. And so at least they take the initiative.
Good on them.
You're right.
Trying to get ahead of it.
To not be like, yes,
hey, we'll get away with this one.
Yeah, right. So it's a sign of redeemed character going on here. And he replied, Peace to you. Do not be afraid. And then he says something wild. Your God and the God of your father has put treasure in your sacks for you. I received your money. Now, is that true? Ultimately, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
It's Joseph, and it's Joseph seeking this by seeking the will of the Lord. The Spirit of the Lord is upon him, right? And so this scheme is ultimately from the hand of God through Joseph. But to them, it's like, wait, what?
Yes.
And by the way, this isn't this when he says the God of your father, the word there is literal, it's Elohim, which is a word that we're familiar with. And it's not a plural like the gods, your gods. It's your God because the verb that follows, put treasure, is singular. So he's referring to your singular God has done this for you. And now if you're because the word Elohim works with both plural and singular, it's like dolphin. So if I'm talking about like a school of dolphin and I say the dolphins swim, right? Mm-hmm. How many are there?
One. Many.
Or if I say the dolphin swims,
That's one.
that's one. But you determine whether it's plural or singular by the verb. That's the same way that this works in Hebrew. So it's Elohim, singular, has put. So for the first time since their first visit, Simeon is released from prison. They're ready to enjoy this meal with the jailer. Verse 24, it says, and when the man had brought the men into Joseph's house and had given them water, and they had washed their feet, and when he had given them their donkey's fodder, what do you notice here? If you're coming and you're suspected of being spies, what are you not expecting?
Hospitality.
Hospitality. You're coming into the house. You're bringing them water. You're washing their feet. You're giving their donkeys all food to eat. It says now they prepared the present for Joseph's coming at noon. All the pistachios and everything else they have, for they heard that they should eat bread there. They're not expecting a feast. They're expecting bread, plain.
The famine,
right? But what has Joseph said?
Brings it all out.
I want you to kill the fattened calf, right? Like we're going to eat meat, which is a super special kind of thing. And all of this, like they're thinking this is crazy. Like, why in the world are we being treated like this? I like nerves going, what is this? Like, just let us get out of here. So verse 26, when Joseph came home, they brought into the house to him the present that they had with them, and they bowed down to him to the ground.
Oh, there it is.
There it is.
Full circle.
There's the 11. Fulfillment of the dream. What's missing here? Dad, and mom, right? The matriarch. But yeah, first dream, check. Here we go. The 11 are bowing down. And he inquired about their welfare and said, is your father well, the old man of whom you spoke? So he sees the 11 bow down, and what's Joseph thinking?
Missing one.
Yeah, all right. We got the 11 stalks of wheat, but now we need the 11 stars and the sun and the moon. Where's the son? Where's father? Is he still alive? And they said, your servant, our father's well. So he's not sickly. He's not ready to die. He's still alive. And they bowed their heads and prostrated themselves. So this is now bowing number 2, where it's like now we go heads and then full prostrate, where their like faces are on the ground, on their knees, like bowing down before him. And I'm sure that this would have seemed really bizarre to them. Verse 29, and he lifted his eyes and saw his brother Benjamin, his mother's son. And he said, is this your youngest brother of whom you spoke to me? Oh, God, be gracious to you, my son. And then Joseph hurried out, for his compassion grew warm for his brother, and he sought a place to weep. And he entered his chamber, and he wept there. So he finally sees that this brother, who he hasn't seen in more than 20 years, is alive. Yeah. And he's with him and seems to be doing okay.
That they weren't lying.
They weren't lying, and he's so emotional at the thought that this could be redeemed. He's just sobbing in a room, has to run out of the room. So, like, imagine them. They got to be like, what in the world?
Yeah, bizarre scene.
Then he washed his face and came out, and controlling him, he said, serve the food. They served him by himself and them by themselves. And the Egyptians who ate with him by themselves, because the Egyptians could not eat with the Hebrews, for that was an abomination to the Egyptians. So the word here for abomination is the same word used in the law of Moses, where like you had to separate the clean from the unclean. So Joseph is saying, I'm an Egyptian. I can't be affiliated with you because you foreigners are that unclean. And this was common in Egypt. They had a lower view of Asiatics, Nubians, Libyans. They were chaotic, uncivilized, Egypt was the land of divine favor. Like a lot of people believed that if you were buried outside of Egypt, you lost your hope of an afterlife. Pharaoh had paintings. The sandals that we have from Pharaoh had paintings of foreigners on the bottom of his sandals that he would tread on all day long. Like our culture is the best. And all foreigners they thought were enemies of Ma'at, which was their god of truth and order and design and all that. So they were seen as inferior. So verse 33, and they sat before him, the firstborn according to his birthright and the youngest according to his youth. And the men looked at each other in amazement. What is that saying? In birth order, right? All 11. Boom, boom, boom. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, all the way down to Benjamin. And the odds of that are 1 in 40 million, getting that correct, putting them in the right order. So now they're thinking what? If we were doubting whether or not God was behind all this, there's no way they could know our birth order. No way. And now we're seated according to our birth order from oldest to youngest. So now it's like in their mind, they have to be like, this is God. This is something's going on here. Something divine is behind this. So portions were taking to them from Joseph's table, but Benjamin's portion was 5 times as much as any of theirs. And they drank and were merry with him. Now, why does he do that? And this is the last verse of the chapter, but this I think is going to be the final major test for them. Who is Benjamin now? And to the brothers, he is the last remaining son of Rachel. He's the last son that the father loves more than them. He's the favored son. And so what is it that drove the brothers to betray Joseph and sell him off into slavery?
That he was the favored one.
That he received treatment that was unfair. You're the favorite. And so what does Joseph do to Benjamin in front of them?
Favors him.
Here's 5 meals. Like here's one for you, and here's one for you, and here's one for you. And you get to the end and here's 5, right? And I'm going to give you special treatment and I'm going to heap it on you. And the key to this verse is, and they drank and were merry with him. This isn't
why did he get that much?
Why did he get that much? It's like they come together and they celebrate together. They're drinking, they're partying together. Everything about this. Later on, Joseph's going to give Benjamin 5 changes of clothes and 300 shekels of silver. And again, it's this 5-fold favoritism, and none of the brothers flinch at it. And what does that say to Joseph?
That they've had some restoration.
They've had some restoration. And that's ultimately going to be what leads him to be like, okay, I've done the forgiveness piece that we talked about.
Can I trust these guys again?
And I'm moving into reconciliation, but can this be restored? Can this family be restored? And through all of this testing and going through the trials, this brilliant plan from Joseph is revealing that is going to be the direction where they go. But what the major test and the gut check for us, and that's where we're going to leave it, is Joseph, by divine wisdom, is saying the mark of whether or not you're really redeemed is whether you can celebrate someone else getting unmerited favor that maybe they didn't deserve, that maybe you feel entitled to. Can you rejoice when someone else receives unmerited favor? What does Jesus go after the Pharisees for all the time?
They're thinking they deserve everything.
They can't stand when he shows compassion to somebody who didn't earn it.
Sure.
And who does Jesus go after most? Them.
Don't deserve it, yeah.
Because none of us do. And so the major test is to look at this. It's the whole point of what we've been doing in Genesis to now. The hard part of Genesis is looking at all these people who keep screwing up so bad and that are such scoundrels, and God keeps blessing their socks off, and everything in us wants to say what? Stop doing this. These people are terrible. They don't deserve it. Like the measure here, can you celebrate alongside somebody who is receiving unmerited favor? That's the sign of an authentically godly person.
If
I rejoice with you.
It's good.
Praise God you received that.
Yep.
Right? Gulp. Like we should want that extended, not just for ourselves, but to everybody. We should celebrate. Jesus tells parables about it where people are unfairly rewarded and people are mad at the parable. And he's like, this is the way heaven works.
Yeah,
right?
I noticed.
Are you in or not? Like, because that's the way heaven works. There's nobody who gets here earning it. And so we should have that perspective toward everyone around us.
Amen.
All right. So I want to thank you so much for watching today's episode. Join us next time as we get into Genesis 44 and the story moves toward a fuller picture of redemption. God bless.